Happy Friday, everybody. This is JJ from Akuma Kaizen, and today we're going to do, for our breakdown, I want to talk about curriculums. Now, when I was traveling across the United States, I used to drop by as many martial arts schools as I could, stick in for a kid's class, stick in for an adult class to see if there's anything different between the two outside of, hey, they're playing games. So specifically, I was looking at their curriculum, their exercises, their self-defense techniques, what they teach these kids. Is it different than what they teach adults? And when I was going, again, traveling on that, I noticed there was never a difference between what they taught the kids and what they taught the adults. Now, certain types of martial arts systems, that doesn't matter as much, but when it comes down to liability or injury and things like that, like the issues that schools and school owners need to think about and discuss when they're making their programs, there was nowhere to be found. So when I made a lot of my techniques for Akuma Kaizen, for our self-defense evolution, I made it so we have the kids version and an adult version. So just to give you an example of how you can adapt self-defense techniques for kids as opposed to what you teach adults, I'm going to show you one of ours, our beginner number 2. We call it kickback. It's just for somebody kicking toward us. It's a classic Kempo style technique that I've modified slightly. And I'm going to show you the adult version and the kid version. Again, this is done specifically so kids don't permanently injure or damage another kid and then you possibly being held liable. Now, obviously, if your system is already set up and you have all your legal paperwork in place, you technically wouldn't be liable. However, you don't want to have that reputation of this guy teaches kids to beat up other kids and hurt them really bad, like teaching them how to break bones or anything like that. Okay, so especially for young kids, you don't want to teach them that. You want to teach them to defend themselves at the same time. So our kickback technique, our beginner level number 2, goes for any sort of straight kick, front kick, whether it be left or right, doesn't matter. And the first move that we do here is we step back, down block, and the next thing we do is we finger jab to the eye and kick to the groin. And then after that, we gain space by front stomp kick, getting space this way. Now, there are 2 strikes in this one that we teach the adults that we shift for kids. Again, we don't want to teach them how to permanently damage or, create like hospital bills for another kid regardless, especially if you're teaching, say, young kids like 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. So instead, what we do here is we do the exact same type of defense. Front kick comes in, we go down for that downward block, and instead of a kick to the groin, which again could potentially seriously injure another child, and a finger jab to the eye, we go palm strike to the face or the chin, and we kick to the shin. So boom, it's the exact same type of movement, but we just change the targets up from eyes, groin to face, shin. All right, last move is still the same. Front push kick, gain distance. Okay, that's a really easy example of how to adapt your self-defense techniques for children. Again, this is something, now this might have changed over the years. I actually don't know. It's been a long time since I've traveled all together and looked at people's curriculums. But if your school is maybe having that problem where maybe some of your kids are in schools where they're in their public schools or private schools where there is an issue of bullies or people possibly getting hurt, this is another way to kind of adapt it. Change your targets. Do the same movement, change the targets. And then when they're of age, say like teenagers, where they will encounter adults that might attack them, then you can teach them, hey, so now that you're transitioning to maybe earn your first degree black belt instead of like a junior black belt, here's what you have to learn. One, you get new material for them, even though it's the same old material, but they have to adapt it, changing the targets now and changing the type of attack, but they already know the movement. So there's just a slight shift for that, okay? But changing the target for the younger tykes is a much better practice that I haven't seen implemented anywhere. So teaching kids, teaching the same sort of defenses, the same sort of movements. And again, this may not apply to all martial arts systems. We just happen to have that in our self-defense evolution. But say boxing doesn't necessarily utilize any of the finger jabs to the eye, or kicks or pulls to the groin or anything like that, or like rakes to the face, arm breaks or anything like that. They don't utilize any of that. So boxing is one of those systems that doesn't necessarily utilize their techniques in a way which could seriously cripple a young child if they were to use that on another one. So just something to think about when you're going into, say, maybe changes for future curriculums for your school, is think about how you might be able to change the technique, or if it even needs to be changed from something devastating that could potentially cause lifelong harm to another child, or not, right? So just things to think about as we go into the weekend. And yeah, that's our breakdown for today. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.